For more on the crash in the French Alps, I'm joined by Jeffrey Baumgarten. He's an aviation expert and a commercial pilot with more than 20 years of experience in the industry. Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Elaine.
I want to ask you about this report by the New York Times saying right now that what was being heard on the voice data recorder, one of the pilots left the cockpit and then was locked out, heard banging on the door. What would be the reasons for a pilot to leave, and just how easy is it for a pilot to get locked out?
Well, it's common, especially after we've leveled off, if honestly, to use the restroom is probably the main reason to leave the cockpit. I'm not particularly familiar with the Airbus A320. That's not the airplane I've flown. But in general, most of the airplanes have the ability to lock someone out of the cockpit, and those were put in place after September 11th. Also, the doors are now all very reinforced, and they're designed to withstand just about any type of abuse that you could give them in an airplane environment, everything short really of explosives. So I don't know what Lufthansa's procedures were, and the procedures here in the United States, for security reasons, we don't generally talk about. And I've never heard of an issue where a pilot's been locked out before. Obviously, it adds to the mystery in this case. It was mystery 2 hours ago, and now with this bit of information, it's even more of a mystery.
That's right. We're obviously still speculating as to maybe why the other pilot in the cockpit wasn't able to let him in. You know, the descent itself wasn't very extreme. Many people are wondering about oxygen masks in the cockpit. 8 minutes to descend. Was that enough time to either put a mask on or use autopilot? Is there something that could have been done in that time?
Well, absolutely. And two of the theories that have been put forward by some experts are, an explosive decompression where you rapidly go from a cabin altitude of 8,000 feet, where everyone's comfortable breathing at that altitude, to all of a sudden the air comes out of the airplane and you're now at a 38,000 foot altitude in the airplane where you only have a few seconds of useful consciousness. Well, in the cockpit, we've got oxygen masks that we can put on, and that is the procedure that we train to, and we can talk to the other crew member over that, and we can also talk to air traffic control through the oxygen mask. So if you had an explosive decompression, the procedure is to put that on and begin to descent, and once you're below about 14,000 feet, most people in the airplane will be able to breathe at that point. And that's why normally when you get on an airplane as a passenger, you're briefed about the little yellow masks that drop in back. That is what would allow people in back to breathe during that descent.
You know, I guess we're speculating again, maybe perhaps the other pilot was unconscious, but really is the only way to get into the cockpit if you're locked out is for someone else to let you in?
Well, and this, I think, varies a little bit from plane to plane. And again, I can't speak to the Airbus A320, but the airplanes that I've flown are designed so that you can either put in a code or press a button outside, and if there's no response from inside the cockpit, it will unlock. And the pilot inside the cockpit, if it is in fact some kind of terrorist issue, can keep it locked and not allow anyone in from the outside. In this case, I think that with only a bit of information going on, it's too early to speculate. I'm not familiar enough with the system on the Airbus. I'm sure that some people here in the next 24 hours will get on and talk about that. But it seems that some effort in this case was taken to lock the pilot out, or the system was simply mechanized that way, and I don't know about that on the Airbus.
Sure, we'll have to wait and see what comes out of this. We have the first black box, the second one still missing, or at least the important part of it is still missing. What if it is never recovered, or if it's too damaged? Can investigators still come up with a solid conclusion as to what caused the crash without it?
There's a lot that they can do. One of the things they'll be doing is analyzing the radar tapes, which will give an idea of what the airspeed and the altitude at various points. Was it a very controlled descent? Was the rate of descent, at 3,000 feet per minute all the way down? That would tell me that it was controlled either by the autopilot or by a pilot flying it manually. Or is it something that varied? Did it, descend very rapidly and then shallow out, and then rapidly again shallow out? And that might tell you that it wasn't controlled. They can look at that. They can figure out the airspeeds from the radar tapes. There's a lot of forensic evidence that's available from the crash site. They can look at things. Materials engineers and experts can look at various parts of their planes and determine what systems are working and what weren't working at the time of the crash. So, there's obviously the black boxes, both the voice recorder and the data recorder nowadays help us determine what happened. We still have a lot of information that can be gleaned from what's on the ground in the Alps.
And Jeffrey, you're a commercial airline pilot. Whenever something like this happens and a plane crash, do airlines generally go through extra checks and balances? Do they change protocol at all? Can you walk us through what might be happening behind the scenes as thousands of flights continue to take off daily?
Absolutely, and I think one of the benefits, America and Europe both have really phenomenal aviation safety systems, and it's been built on the fact that every time we have an accident, we really search down and figure out exactly what caused it, and we either change the way we build the airplanes, we change the procedures by which we fly them, we change the training. We will find out what went wrong, and we're going to fix that. And in this case, there's no question. They will find out what happened, and they will change either the procedures or if it was something with the Airbus, which I don't think there's any reason at this point necessarily to believe. There's really no evidence conclusively anyway to decide what happened. But whatever it is they find out, they will address, and it will make everyone safer.
Right.
And I would have, the Airbus is a phenomenally safe airplane. I would have no reservations about flying it tomorrow. And Lufthansa has a great reputation. I would have no reservations about flying them tomorrow.
All right, Jeffrey Baumgarten, aviation expert in New Orleans. Thank you so much for joining us.